Drake Baldwin has given the Braves some big moments here lately, leading many to ask, should he get more playing time over Sean Murphy? I'll answer those questions and many more on today's mailbag episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at shorts.ball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below, as it does help us out a ton here at Locked On Braves. If you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Braves and all the Locked On podcasts are available pretty much anywhere that you can listen. Thank you so much for your support of Locked On Braves. Today's episode is our mailbag, weekly mailbag episode. I got about 20 questions per usual, variety of questions that I'm going to answer. Several of them have to do with Drake Baldwin, some about Orlando Arcia and the roster with Acuna coming back, hopefully some point this month. So a lot to cover on today's episode, which is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Well, as I said, it's our mailbag episode, about 20 questions to get to, so we're going to jump right into them. The first one from Matt Karch, who says, the offense clicked when we got contributions from Verdugo, White, and Allen. Verdugo and Allen have definitely cooled off as the offense has slumped. At some point, the big guns, Riley, Olsen, and Ozuna, have to carry this offense to some wins, and unfortunately, they aren't. And I think you're spot on. I think you're absolutely right. It's nice to get those contributions from Verdugo and Eli White and Nick Allen that you weren't really expecting much from. But if this offense is going to reach its ultimate goals, Riley, Ozuna, Olsen, Acuna when he comes back, Ozzy Albies, Michael Harris, those guys have to hit like they're capable of. And for the most part, they haven't. There's been stretches for Riley here and there, and overall his numbers are solid. Matt Olson, nobody wants to hear about the luck factor, but I feel like he's had a really good season as well. A 771 OPS, Riley an 816 OPS, Marcell Ozuna an 870 OPS. So all three of those guys, just looking at their numbers on the whole, have been relatively good. It does feel like they're lacking, and I apologize. I forget. I saw it. I think it was Steven Outliers on X who pointed this out, that while Ozuna's numbers look great, when you just look at them on the surface, it feels like he's not impacting the game quite as much. And maybe part of that is just because of the selectiveness that he's had this year. He's taken a bunch of walks. He's walked 31 times and struck out 32 times. I think you can say the same thing for Olsen. He's walked 28 times, struck out 33 times. I just don't think those guys are getting a lot to hit right now. And partially because the guys behind them aren't getting it done. Whether that's been Sean Murphy, Ozzy, mostly those two have been hitting behind those guys. I think pitchers are going to be extra careful. But, to your point, this offense is going to go as much as the heart of your order does. But, they can, if they want to be a top offense in baseball, then they need those supplemental guys to be able to contribute at the bottom of the order and get on base to set them up. So, it takes obviously all 9 to really get to that big goal of being one of the top offenses. But you're right in that Ozuna, Riley, Olsen, Acuna, Ozzy, those have to be the big providers. They don't have to all be going at the same time, but at some point, at least one or two of those guys really need to be on and having an impact every single night. Mark McGuire, I don't think it's that one, says, is Arcia gone when Ronald comes back? He is not good anymore. I don't disagree with your statement here, but who are you replacing him with? At the very least, Arcia can come in and handle the shortstop position. Maybe Eli White can do that. I know Snit said he's comfortable putting him anywhere, but Arcia is cheap. He can fill into a serviceable job at shortstop should you need him to, if Nick Allen were to get hurt or Nick Allen's offense just gets so bad, which I think there's a question about that later too, that you just have to. So I just don't think there's any reason to really get rid of Arcia at this moment, because again, who are you replacing him with? That's really that much better or going to have that much more of an impact right now. Unless you're going out and getting a solidified starting shortstop, and those just aren't available, I really don't know what the other move is for Arcia. I'll just go ahead and tell you the news. They did DFA Eddie Rosario and called up Luke Williams, who is another guy that can kind of play all over the place. Not sure if he could handle shortstop. I'm sure he could for an inning or two, but not for a long stretch. Nacho, we still haven't seen him at the minor league level, so don't know what's going on there. Luke Waddell just came back off the injured list not too long ago. So there's just not a lot of options in the system right now to back up shortstop. So I think you have to keep Arcia for that reason. Cab Buckeyes, a lot of people rightfully say that you can never expect a sweep, but given the struggles against the top teams and the 0-7 start, do they need to start sweeping some of these terrible teams sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. That's why I was so frustrated with the end of that Rockies series, because you won the first two, you had a chance to sweep them with Chris Sale on the mound, and the offense just fell flat. And that was a game that you let get away from you. And you do have to start sweeping some of these series against lesser opponents. And well, the Pirates are one of them this weekend. They just fired their manager. They're not playing good baseball. You're missing Paul Skeens. I feel like this is an opportunity that you need to go out there and at very least win 2 or 3. But like you said, they need to start sweeping some of these series too to get back over that hump. PJ's Braves, in one of the recent podcasts, I think it was mentioned that some of Strellenbach's current struggles was due to throwing too many strikes, and that was also an issue last year. Could you elaborate on what you mean, given many Braves pitchers' struggles with walks? So what I mean by throwing too many strikes is hitters know that, and so they can go up there being aggressive, knowing they're going to get a pitch in the zone. Doesn't really matter what type of pitch, but you know you're going to get a pitch in the strike zone. It makes it a little bit easier for you to go up there and be aggressive. Now, I am more so talking about with 2 strikes and putting balls more in the gray area or the shaded area that you look at. If you look on MLB's Game Day, there's kind of that shaded area outside of the strike zone, throwing more quality pitches just outside of the zone instead of all of those being in the zone. He is throwing too many 2-strike pitches in the zone and even pitches early in count. Like I said, when you see a team being as aggressive as they are against you, start a pitch because he has the command. He has the command to do it. Throw those pitches just off the plate, just outside of the zone, away or inside. I think that's more so what I'm talking about is just the quality of 2-strike pitches, not having to throw a pitch in the zone, knowing that you can throw one a little bit further out of the zone, try to get some chase or throw a pitch in the gray area because you don't want to take away his effectiveness of what has been his effectiveness to be able to go deep into games because he does throw a lot of strikes. But I'm more so talking about hitting those gray areas just outside the strike zone, early in counts, late in counts, just nibbling basically a little bit more is what I'm talking about. Matt Karch, it's annoying when guys are called slow starters or they perform better in July or what have you. Does this have to do with them not prepping in the offseason? They have 6 weeks of spring training. No reason these guys can't hit coming out of the chute. I don't have an answer for this one necessarily. It seems to happen for some guys for whatever reason. And maybe it's just they can't really, spring training games are what they are, but they don't have that intensity of a regular season game. And maybe it just takes some players a little bit of time to get up to that level of intensity. And again, spring training is great for what it is to try to get your timing down and all of that. But you're not facing, the Jacob deGroms of the world going full strength. Even pitchers in spring training, they're usually not going full strength, and you're not getting them 2 or 3 times through the order. So it still is an adjustment, I think, for a lot of players, and I think we're mostly talking about Michael Harris here. That's what I talked about on the podcast the other day, is his slow starts. And I don't know how you overcome that. It's one of those weird things where some players struggle with that. And some of them their entire career. There will be a season, knock on wood, where Michael Harris will come out and he'll be on fire from the jump and won't slow down, and he'll have his career season. But he has, at least early on in his career, shown signs of being a slow starter. Wriggler 2, was Snit pinch hitting Rosario for the team's hottest hitter to spite AA, or is it just Snit that bad at managing a baseball team? I think it's just Snit making a dumb decision, and his explanation for it afterwards, and look, there's more to this quote, but he basically was trying to see if there was some old magic left in there. And that just makes the move seem even more idiotic. Now, he did also explain that Emilio Pagan has really good numbers against right-handed hitters. And I get that side of it, but he also added in the other part that he was just hoping there was some old magic left. And that's not really how you manage a baseball game. So I think it was just a really bad decision on Snit's part. And now Rosario is gone and off the team. And apparently not very happy about it, according to his Instagram account, where apparently he posted a clown image after getting released. All right, we still got a lot more questions to get to, some on Eli White and some more on Drake Baldwin. We'll get into the rest of those questions here next. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty, and Avowed, MLB The Show as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and auto low latency mode advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with the lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On, Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out the guys over at Locked On MLB, where they're getting you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball. And just as a programming reminder, on Friday night, I will be going live and doing a full podcast reviewing the game on Friday night, or if Lindsay is able to get home from the Auburn games, we'll do a postcast. But you will have something after the game on Friday night, so make sure you check out Locked On Braves on Friday night, so you'll get something from either me and Lindsay talking about the game. Let's jump back into the questions here. This one from Calvin Finner, who says, what will we do with the conundrum known as the Braves bench? Carrying Nick Allen and Orlando Arcia is redundant and leaves us with limited to no pinch hitting options, especially with Snit not wanting to pinch hit with his backup catcher. So I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. I understand having Arcia is redundant, and he really doesn't give you anything other than being a backup shortstop. But again, who are you replacing him with? I mean, it'd be great to get somebody that can play a serviceable shortstop for you and also have the bat. I mean, it'd be great to have a Kike Hernandez or even a Chris Taylor on your bench. Maybe Nacho fills that role as somebody who gives you a solid bat off the bench, but he's injured right now. So I don't know who you're replacing Orlando Arcia with to give you what you're looking for, which what you need is somebody that can handle the shortstop position well enough and can also give you a little bit of something at the plate. Arcia, we know, can handle the shortstop position, and look, the at-bats aren't good, and I especially would imagine they're not good after you've been sitting for a long time, but he might run into one every now and then. So again, it's not great, but I think your pinch hitters are going to be your outfielders. They're going to be your Alex Verdugo if he gets moved to the bench when Ronald comes back, or Eli White from the right side. I think those are going to be more of your pinch hitter types, and Arcia is just there for backup infield, especially with Eli White. I think maybe the biggest, I don't say the biggest reason, but I think one of the reasons the Braves called up Luke Williams and DFA'd Eddie Rosario is because Eli White's an everyday player now. And so you need somebody on your bench who can play all those different positions, and also somebody that can be your pinch runner. Right now, that's Stuart Fairchild, but just to be able to have another guy in Luke Williams, who has been dreadful at AAA this year offensively, but somebody that can play a bunch of different positions and also give you another pinch running option off the bench. I think that's the main focus there. I mean, what you really want with your bench is you want somebody that can cover all the infield spots, cover all the outfield spots, somebody that can hit righties, somebody that can hit lefties, and one of those four that I just mentioned, somebody that can run and pinch run. That's really what you're looking for in your bench. Matt Cox, do you think Eli and Mike will platoon once Ronald comes back? I don't. I think Mike's going to play every single day. Well, I shouldn't say every day. Maybe you give him an off day every now and then, but I think he's going to be your primary center fielder both against righties and lefties. And look, Mike had a pretty good series. And as we talked about the other day, Mike generally comes along as the season goes along. So I expect him to get going. It was a really good last couple of games for him against the Reds. Hopefully that continues. But I am curious to see what they do with Eli White once Ronald returns. Look, Verdugo's cooled off. Maybe Eli White just becomes your everyday left fielder until Profar returns. Maybe they just platoon Eli and Verdugo in left field. Maybe Eli gets some starts at second base if Ozzie continues to struggle. I think there's ways to get Eli in the lineup. You can start Eli at shortstop for a game if you wanted to. So I think there's other ways to get Eli in the lineup. And certainly one of those would be giving Mike a day off in center field. But I don't think it comes to the point where it's a platoon situation with Mike in center. Austin Pruitt, is it just me or does every tag play at second base, particularly the one Blake Dunsteel, have your heart stop till you know there isn't another Ozzie injury? I'm right there with you. When I was watching that play and I saw Ozzie look down at his hand, I immediately said, oh no, did he break his hand again? But I think what he was looking at down this time is that he tagged the helmet first. But yeah, that was my immediate reaction too on that play is, oh, I hope Ozzie didn't break something again. So I don't know what he needs to do, wear steel gloves or something, but that does worry me on those tag plays at second with Ozzie. Wriggler too, the catchers look to do a lot better when well rested. Murphy's return and Baldwin recently. Now that Murphy has cooled, should a 50-50 playing time be the goal? So we finally get to the question of the headline title for the podcast today. Do we need to see more of Drake Baldwin? Does it need to be a 50-50 split? And Wriggler, while I know you said that Murphy and Baldwin seem to be doing well once with getting rest, I don't think that's necessarily been the case for Sean Murphy since coming over to the Braves. The best stretch we've ever seen from Sean Murphy is when Travis d'Arnaud was injured and he was playing pretty much every day. So I think he's somebody that needs that regular playing time. Now he has cooled off, but I mean, you're talking about cooling off from a guy that was hitting a home run almost every game. So his numbers are still there. But it is interesting, and I was looking at the numbers before we jumped on here. You look at both Sean Murphy and Drake Baldwin, and Sean Murphy's gotten almost 20 more at-bats at this point, but only one more hit. He's walked only 2 more times. He struck out almost 20 more times. The biggest difference between the two is that Sean Murphy has 7 home runs and Drake Baldwin has 3. And that's why Sean Murphy has an OPS of 832 and Drake Baldwin 802. Both great, but there is, quite a gap there in how they're getting it done. And this is ultimately a conversation of, who's the better player, I think is what many fans are asking and wondering. I think they're both good. And I think you hang on to both of them and maybe you do go to a 50-50 playing time split. Maybe you platoon them a little bit better and make sure that Drake Baldwin starts, against righties, which most of them are going to be. Make sure Sean Murphy starts against lefties, although I don't know there's necessarily a split disparity between the two. I didn't look that up beforehand, but I think maybe there is a situation. All right, well, let me just say this. Comparing the two players, and we're dealing with a very short sample size, Drake Baldwin's consistently giving you better at-bats, which is why I have been frustrated, and I talked about this on the postcast. I don't know why Snick continues to put him down in the 7-8 hole in the order whenever you do play him, when he's giving you some of your best at-bats consistently, going back from his time at the beginning of the year when he was subbing in for Sean Murphy to last night. And look, even in the game on Thursday, he had a chance to win that game earlier and struck out in a big spot before he ultimately came up with the big hit later in the game. But I do think that he gives you the better at-bats. But Sean Murphy's going to give you a lot of that power, despite playing in far fewer games than many of the other Braves regulars. He's second on the team in home runs with just 1 behind Austin Riley. So he gives you that big power, but Drake Baldwin, he'll give you the walks. He'll give you some power too. And he's just a more consistent hitter that can put the ball in play a little bit better. So and then it comes down to defensively, which we all saw Drake Baldwin make a good throw to throw out a runner on Thursday night, which I don't remember the last time Sean Murphy has thrown out a runner, and many of those are not his fault, as we've discussed. A lot of those are on the pitcher, but still, Drake Baldwin able to get it done in a big spot in extra innings. I thought that was pretty clutch of him. All the pitchers say that they like throwing to him. So if it gets to the point that we feel Drake Baldwin is maybe not as good, but close enough defensively to Sean Murphy, and Drake Baldwin's a better all-around hitter, then I think we have a decision to make here. I think there's a certain – I think that at that point there is a bigger question. I don't know that we're there yet because, like I said, we're dealing with a small sample size. I am a Sean Murphy believer, and I think he does a great job calling a game behind the plate. I think he gets runners not to run quite as much just because of the threat of his arm. I think that is something we've seen runners be more aggressive against Drake Baldwin just because being a rookie, and that's maybe been one of the knocks on him is just the defense. But again, I do think that Drake Baldwin gives you the better at-bats consistently. So it's a tough choice. I think at the very least, if you're going to keep doing this 2 games Murphy, 1 game Baldwin, 2 games Murphy, 1 game Baldwin, you got to look for more opportunities to let Drake Baldwin pinch hit. And I know Snit has been hesitant to do that, but you can't waste that bat on the bench in a clutch moment. If Nick Allen's up in the 6th, 7th inning in a clutch spot, I want to see Drake Baldwin come into the game. I want to see him hit. And that's why Orlando Arcia is there too. And then it makes Orlando Arcia more valuable. So I think you do have to look for opportunities. If you're not going to play Drake Baldwin more as a starter, look for more opportunities in those games where he doesn't start to get him in the ball game. Jake says, not me, but another Jake says, if Snit continues to make moves like he did on Wednesday night, do you think AA asked him to retire? I said when he signed this last deal that I thought he would retire after 2025. I still feel like that is going to happen. I feel like Snit's just going to walk away after this year. We'll see. If I'll say this, if it's just a bad year and Snit continues to make some of the bad decisions that we've seen recently. And look, I want to put a caveat to that. And I talked about it on the postcast. They're in a long stretch of games right now. And so Snicker's not trying to manage just this one game. He's trying to manage the next 2 weeks of games without an off day. And that doesn't excuse all of the decisions that we saw in that Red series. But if that were to continue, and if it were a rough year, they underperform both in the regular season and potentially in the postseason again, or certainly if they don't make the postseason at all, I think there's a conversation that has to be had between AA and Snit that says, hey, thank you for all you've given for this organization. We would really appreciate it if you just stepped away. And something to that degree, obviously with better bedside manner, but I would not be shocked if that conversation is had if this is another disappointing season by the Braves. All right, we got several more questions to get to on today's podcast. We'll wrap things up here next. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. But why are we talking about the NBA? It's a baseball podcast. I don't even know who's in the NBA playoffs anymore. But if you are like me and you moved on to the Major League Baseball season, you got World Series odds over there, all kinds of player props for each and every day. You just want to check out the odds for a particular game or division winner, anything like that. You can see it all over at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/play-safe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining the podcast today for our weekly mailbag episode. Thank you to all those who submitted questions, all these great questions that I get each and every week. I don't know how you come up with them every week. Some of them just a different variety of the same question, but I appreciate them all the same. Let's jump back into the rest of these, though. Jeremy Vincent, what is more pressing at the trade deadline if it were now, early pitching or starting pitching? I think my tune has changed on this a little bit, and this might surprise you because you've heard me talk here lately. I've been pleasantly surprised with the work that the bullpen has done to this point, but there's also that Iglesias situation that the Braves have right now, and I think the trade deadline is right now. Your biggest need is relief pitcher, and I think I talked about this too when I did a podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I talked about what are the biggest needs now that we've seen this team for a little while. I think I had starting pitcher ranked 1 and relief pitcher ranked 2, but that was mostly driven by the fact that you need starting pitching to get you through the regular season. You need relief pitching for the postseason. So assuming the Braves are at the trade deadline, they're trying to get to the postseason, assuming Strider, Sale, Schwellenbach are all healthy and looking good, your biggest need is in the reliever market, because you got to have somebody to help set up the back end of these games. Dayswell has been a big breakout candidate this year, as we thought he might be, but still we haven't seen him in those high pressure situations in the playoffs. Pierce Johnson's looking much better, but again, he kind of makes me nervous. De Los Santos has good stuff, but I don't know that I trust him. And again, with the way Iggy has been pitching so far this year and giving up all the home runs, I don't know that I trust him. So it's a funny answer for me, because I feel like the bullpen has been surprisingly good this year for the Atlanta Braves. But if I'm thinking ahead and I'm thinking of a postseason series against the Phillies or the Dodgers, is there a relief pitcher that can come out that I feel pretty confident? I don't know if against those lineups you feel completely confident, or the Mets too. I don't want to throw any shade at the Mets. That Pete Alonso, say you got Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, and Francisco Lindor coming up. What reliever do I trust to come in and shut those guys down? It's probably Dayswell right now is your number one. And like I said, we really haven't seen him in those type moments. So I think it is, as Laura Bond said, maybe a solid 8th inning guy. But if Iggy's issues continue, you're going to need a closer at some point. You cannot have Iglesias leaving sinkers and changeups and sliders up in the zone against Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts and Bryce Harper and Juan Soto in a postseason series. That just can't happen. So a long way to go until we get there, but I would say relief pitcher is the more pressing need at the trade deadline, assuming everybody else is healthy. J Baz, at what point do you think we should start thinking about giving Drake Baldwin more starts? Every time he starts, he gets on base, and Murph is starting to get into a slump, maybe like a 3 days each type of thing. I don't know about 3 days, so 3 days on, 3 days off. I don't think that's a good maneuver either. You either go 50-50 split, or you keep it as it is now, where one of them starts 2 days and one of them starts 1 day and then 2-1, 2-1 like that. I think we're getting close there. Like I said earlier, if the defense for Baldwin is catching up to where it's really a non-factor between he and Sean Murphy, I think Baldwin gives you the better at-bats. Casey Webb, will Mark DeRosa be the next head coach for the Braves? I don't think many Braves fans want that at this point, with some of the comments that Mark DeRosa has had on MLB Central here lately. So yeah, I don't think he would be on the short list at the moment. Regular 2, why can't Snit recognize that Iggy is the least dependable arm in the bullpen like everyone else can? Because Snit's loyal to a fault, same way Bobby Cox was at times. Loyal to a fault. He's going to continue to run his guy out there, and you're paying him $16 million to be your closer. So he's going to have a longer leash than most people. I've hinted at the fact that maybe he needs some sort of phantom IL stint to get on track and get right. And I don't think it's a matter of stuff. Again, as I said before, I think it's just a matter of location, and everything is up right now. And at some point, he may just need an IL stint to figure that out. And in the meantime, you may need to go with Daysbell as your closer. Caz Buckeye, shortstop. Should we try White there when Ronald comes back? If Allen is the best defender in MLB and the worst hitter in MLB over 162, is that a viable everyday player? Yes, I think it is. I'll say the same thing with Allen that I said about Arcia. As long as he's playing above average defense and batting 9th in your order and everybody else is doing what they're supposed to, I'm perfectly fine with that. So if Allen wants to win the Gold Glove at shortstop and be one of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball, I'm fine with that. As long as everybody else is doing their job, it should not matter. When we get to the point that we're counting on Nick Allen and Orlando Arcia to save this offense, you're in a bad spot. So I'm okay with that. Another one from Cavs. Got several from Cavs here. I'm asking this, Matt, after Iglesias just gave up a 2-run bomb in the 9th, but how long do you give this team to get above 500 until we recalibrate how good we think they are? I'd say end of May. There's some soft series here in the middle of May that gives you a chance to get over 500, but then there's some big series at the end of May that are really going to be a litmus test for you. You know, so far they got swept by the Padres. They got swept by the Dodgers in LA. They lost the series to the Dodgers at home. They have won a series against the Phillies. They did win a series against the Diamondbacks, right? Yeah, they won that series. So they've had some big series wins, but by the end of May, I think we'll have a pretty good idea. And hopefully by that point, we have Ronald back. And so you're not really going to see the full potential of this offense and of this team until you have Ronald back. So there's a series against Boston at kind of the middle of May, and then you finish the month with the Padres, who again swept the Braves to begin the season, and at Philadelphia, and then Boston again. So like I said, kind of that end of May, early June timeframe when you're going to get Ronald back. You're going to have some tough teams on your schedule. I think that's going to be a good indication of who this team can be going forward. So that would kind of be my time frame for me. Next one from Kaz Buckeyes. I actually don't hate the nostalgia signings in a vacuum if they're going to be sparsely used. But what does A keep making them if he knows Snit is going over them? So this was my thing with Eddie Rosario. I'm right there with you, Cav. I'm fine with signing Eddie Rosario. And when the signing happened, I said he'll probably sit on the bench until Acuna comes back and get less than 10 plate appearances. And then you throw him in the starting lineup when you're trying to get a sweep over the Rockies and your team is rolling. And I don't think that's the reason this offense has been slumping. Some people have suggested that, but ever since you made that lineup change, this team has been slumping. And then you throw him out there in a pinch hit situation in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs and a runner on first. And it's just like Snit feels like he's there. I got to use him. I got to get him in the game. And no, you don't have to. You don't have to. So, yeah, it's just I would have liked it. And maybe look with Eddie Rosario's post, and I'm not trying to read too much into an Instagram post, but maybe there was some ill feelings there for Eddie that he wasn't getting used enough. We don't know the inner workings of the clubhouse and what his feelings were on that. I can't imagine once the Braves signed him and called him up that he thought he'd be getting a lot of playing time. But again, I was okay with it, just thinking that he was going to be there for the vibes, sit there at the end of the dugout with Orlando Arcia and cut up during the game. And maybe occasionally you get him a start or a pinch hit opportunity. But yeah, Snit just felt that need. He's like, oh, that guy used to be really good at one point for us. Let's try that again. So maybe DFAing Eddie Rosario is just saving Snit from himself. And then last one from Kaz Buckeyes. What is your confidence in Michael turning it around? Not just this season, but his career overall. His WRC plus has declined every single year. The Savant page is ugly and he can't learn to take some pitches. He just will always be a very limited hitter. And that was basically our last podcast. I talked about this. If he doesn't improve the swing changes, then he is just going to be, what he is, what he has been, which is still a good player. Last year was obviously a rough one, dealt with a lot of injuries, but I'm confident that Michael Harris can get back to the player he was his first 2 years, which is a 280, 290 batting average type of player, 2020 type of player. I'm confident that he can get back to that level this year. Again, we're talking about early May. It's May 9th. I'm confident he can get back to that level right away and be at that level going forward. But until I see some swing changes, I'm not as confident that he can reach that next level. And until I see some adjustments there, I think he is kind of capped at, 280, 290 type of hitter, 2020, which is still good. I mean, we're talking about, Randy Rosarina type of player, solid, maybe not a perennial all-star, but maybe, like I said, he has that one big year. But I think that's where Michael Harris is now. And I'm just not as confident that he's going to reach that next level unless these swing changes take place. And final question overall from Wriggler 2, how many bad baseball decisions does Snit have to make for you to join the Fire Snit bandwagon? I'm never going to be on the Fire Snit bandwagon. First of all, the guy's done so much for this team, and I know that's not a reason for keeping somebody. But as I said earlier, I think if this is another rough season and it's another year that's wasted with this talent, there needs to be that conversation of, hey, thanks for what you've done for us. Let's have this peaceful parting of ways here. And I think he's going to be gone after the season anyway. Things would have to just disastrously be bad. Look, they started 0-7. They're almost 500, back to 500. So I'm not going to be on the Fire Snit bandwagon. Never will. I do think there's a good chance that he's gone after this season. All right. Thank you so much for the questions today. Thanks for everybody who joined me here live. Jeff Barry, Laura Bond, Stephen Walker, Jeffrey Humphreys every day are in here. Thank you all for joining. Kyle Knapp. Appreciate your support here of the podcast. Carlos Paulino, happy Friday to you as well. Again, be back tonight in some fashion. Either we'll have a postcast with me and Lindsay, or we'll have a regular Locked On Braves podcast with just me talking about Friday night's game and the rest of this weekend series with the Pirates. So make sure you are tuned in, got the notification turned on so you get notified whenever we go live for tonight's episode. But that will do it for this one. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.